What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video here on CFL Central for the fans, by the fans, CFL content. Today we have a very special guest coming on to join us and talk about his experience in the CFL. Former first overall draft pick, two-time Grey Cup champion with the Argos in 2012 and the Saskatchewan Roughriders in 2007. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Wayne Smith to the show. Wayne, how are you doing?
Oh, doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Very excited to talk to you. You have a very interesting CFL career. I took a look at it and I was looking at the games you played and everything, and I'm very excited to talk about you. You've had a really interesting journey, it seems like, playing in the CFL. So,
Yeah.
For
take
sure.
us through your time, like, going from college, going into the NFL a little bit. I know you played with the Broncos and I believe the oh God, who was it again? The Broncos
The
and the
Redskins.
Redskins, excuse me, yes. And then you went over and I was drafted by the Tie Cats. Just speak to your experience coming out of college and entering the world of professional football like that.
Yeah, no, it was quite a ride, but yeah, played at Appalachian State. Ended up getting an undrafted offer to Washington. Was there for training camp. Signed with Denver after I was released later on that year, and they actually allocated me to NFL Europe because they wanted me to learn how to play center as a tackle in
Wow.
college.
Oh wow.
Um, and but during the physical, they found something. I was having stingers, so they didn't want to send me over with a neck issue. So basically, I kind of just I was looking for an opportunity to play to show that I was healthy, and ended up in the CFL. And 13 years later, I guess,
There you
yeah,
go.
Yeah,
uh,
well, I always like to speak about the college experience because when we talked with Chris Wallaby about a month and a
Oh
half
god.
ago, and the stories that he
yeah,
had about college
Oh my
football down in the
word.
states, I was just because me Carter and me both played a little bit of football up here in Canada, and not even
yeah.
close to anything like the stories he
Oh
had
my
about
goodness.
college. So yeah, but tell us about your time in Appalachian State and all that, and what I was like playing there because that's a pretty established school. So what were your favorite memories down there? Some of the best games that you can remember.
Yeah, no, it was an adventure. The first game we played was at first game. My first college game was at Clemson at Death Valley.
Oh
So
wow.
Oh wow.
yeah. So that was talk about a
Wow.
welcome to college football. That was
No
interesting.
kidding.
But no, it was great. It was a perfect fit at the time. Had an opportunity to play for a legendary coach there, Jerry Moore, who went on and won a couple national championships.
Yeah.
He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. Great leader of men. Some great teammates. It's Boone, North Carolina is a very interesting place. It's kind of secluded, so basically it's literally in the middle of the mountain. So it's kind of it's unique experience, especially growing up and living in places like Toronto and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Going in the middle of Boone, North Carolina, with a population of 10,000 people
Wow.
was a bit culture shock, but
Quite
no,
of a
it
change,
was
yeah.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great. But
Well,
we got to play a lot of great games there. I think probably the most memorable game I played in. There's quite a few, but going up to Montana and lose, well, we had lost in overtime, but going up there and in the playoffs and playing there in the middle of a blizzard and
oh
losing,
wow.
on a last
Oh
second
yeah.
pass, but knocking off the number one team in the nation at home.
Oh
Basically,
yeah.
the town shut down for 2 days. So yeah, there was a lot of great experiences there.
I bet. That's one thing I've always loved
Yeah.
about the CFL growing up as a kid is that even though you had your Green Bay games where you'd have some snow and some games in the NFL where there was snow, I always loved that blizzard element in the CFL when you got towards playoff time and you were
Yeah.
having to go out
Yeah,
there. It's such a great. I feel like it's the best. Like rain is also fun to watch. I can't imagine playing in these types of games, but it's always fun to watch from a fan side of thing. What's it like playing in a blizzard like that and cold temperatures like that? Because even the Grey Cup this year was played in like I believe -20 or something like that in
It
Hamilton.
was cold.
Insane conditions.
Yeah.
yeah. You know what? After about the first, it's I guess it's different. After about the first, series, after warm ups, usually pretty good. I mean, there's a couple tricks that you have.
I bet.
You get the icy hot and the Vaseline. You rub it on your skin to seal your pores, and a
Yeah.
couple extra pairs of socks. One guy my rookie year, he wore pantyhose, like women's pantyhose underneath his, which I'm gonna leave his name on. But that was his
I've never heard that one.
yeah, that was his method for staying warm. And I was like, I never adopted that one, but um Yeah, we yeah, so you just kind of after about the first series or so, then I mean, at that point you're so dialed in that doesn't mean you could be playing
Absolutely.
in.
Yeah.
But that being said, I'd much rather play in a blizzard than to have to play in scorching temperatures.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I'm the
Yeah.
same way. Same way about the weather. Yeah, like because well, going and talking about weather. Then I wanted to talk to you about, even though we're jumping around a little bit, that's okay.
Yeah,
You
that's
played
fine.
you played the two Grey Cups in the dome. And I grew up watching the BC Lions out here
Yes.
in a dome. They play in obviously
Yeah,
BC Place, and Carter, being a Winnipegger, has always watched games in outdoors. So, what can you
Yep.
talk about the experience of playing games like that? Because you also, if I'm not mistaken, you played in the Sky Dome for both of those Grey Cup games, and they don't play there anymore.
yeah.
So, what was it like to play in an environment like that where you're sharing the stadium with baseball?
Yeah.
It was fine. It was it was it's a unique experience in CFL. I mean, a lot of people didn't like it. I actually enjoyed playing there. For the Grey Cup, it was a completely different scenario.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
bet.
the 2007 Grey Cup, it was packed and it was 80% Saskatchewan fans, which was pretty amazing.
Yep.
And it was so I think it builds it that much more because it gets set that much louder in there, and it was a pretty unique experience. And
Oh,
then
I bet.
2012 at home, uh, much of the same thing. It was pretty exciting to have that environment, and when that place is full, it's pretty exciting. It's a great venue. I liked it. I mean, I loved BMO as well, but I think they're both unique in their own special ways. But I think the Sky Dome / Rogers Center brought a unique quality to the Argos brand at that point.
I bet, because it's weird
For
because
sure.
that stadium is when you think about it, it's very interesting because it's housed the CFL at one point, it's housed the MLB, but it also housed the NBA because when the Raptors first joined the
I remember
NBA, they
I
that.
actually
forgot
played
about
in that
that.
arena. The
Yeah,
photos of it are wild, but yeah, so it's a very interesting history they have with the teams
it
and games that
also
have been played
held
there.
WrestleMania. Also held
That
the
is true as
WrestleMania
well.
Yes,
game.
that is
Yes,
true.
Yeah,
Was it like 17 or 18?
I
One of
think
yeah.
those
I think
two?
Ultimate
so.
Warrior versus Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Which
Hell
Carter's a
yeah.
very
If I,
big
if I
wrestling
remember
fan.
correctly.
Carter's a very big
Yeah,
wrestling fan.
I
Yeah, geek out
forgot about
about that.
yeah.
that.
Yeah, because I always preferred, like, I've always preferred dome stadiums. I've seen games all around the country in different elements, and every stadium, like you said, brings its own, value to it. It's all unique. It's a different experience from a fan standpoint. So I can only imagine the benefits of being a player and experiencing what the on-field side of it is. But always preferred dome stadiums. I think they're just very fun and unique
Well, you know
experiences.
what they have. They said it's every stadium has unique. Like I remember, well, obviously in '07 playing outside in the playoffs at Taylor Field at the time. I guess at that point it was Mosaic, the old Mosaic,
Hmm.
but and that place there was. I don't think there's a home field advantage like that stadium because not only is the crowd insane and it was always the loudest place to play in the league, but if you knew how to play the wind right, I mean, though I can remember a couple games that playing the wind was able to win us the game. I remember um, taking the win in the fourth quarter in '07, I think it was, and I think we took the win in the third quarter and put the win at our backs and went no huddle and ended up putting up 21 points against Montreal in the third quarter.
Whew, nice.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
or I can remember Hamilton kicking a field goal, and it looked like it was good, and the wind just snapped it out of the air and slammed it to the ground.
Yeah.
So it
Wow.
was definitely it had its unique advantages playing there.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, like for sure. I mean, like even when I watched like the Grey Cup this year, you could definitely see the wind coming into a factor. Like even
Oh
in
yeah,
that third and fourth quarter, I remember just playing it like because like I mean me and Jake are both Bomber fans. We're like, oh my god, like it's the wind is not helping us.
No,
And
it
then the fourth
definitely
quarter
not.
came around and it was like, oh,
Uh,
okay.
well, I gotta ask you because me and Carter obviously are Bomber fans. So our biggest rivalry has always been Saskatchewan, and
oh yeah.
you met the Bombers in 2007 for the first time ever in the Grey Cup game. That was a really important big
And I
game.
think the only time still
Yes,
to
I,
this
I
day.
believe it is still the only
Yeah.
time as well, and huge game. And it had no reason being that close considering the situation the Bombers had with their roster and quarterback. And it was a very entertaining game. I actually went back, found the old archive footage, watched both of your Grey Cup games in full, and they were really entertaining. It makes me miss the original OG kind of not Grey Cup, CFL games that they had. So I want to talk to you about those games because you played in some really cool ones. Like I said, you have the first matchup in history between the two biggest rivalries in the CFL, and then you also played at the 100th CF Grey Cup in Toronto for the Argonauts and won with the Argonauts. So like very important games that you've played in, very meaningful games over the last 20 years. So what was the most biggest like memory you can take from both of those experiences, winning against in such incredible games?
Well, the '07 Grey Cup was special. Not only being my first one, but just kind of the journey that brought us there. And it was one of those. It was a kind of a I ended up getting traded there, leaving Hamilton the first time, and wasn't thrilled about the trade. I was not happy when I got traded, but got to Saskatchewan and walk in the locker room and get into the season and realized, all right, we have something special on our hands here. And going through that journey, I mean, I can remember some pretty memorable games. We had in '07 we had the blackout game against Edmonton, where the power went out, and we had that, and then we had the Labor Day game against Winnipeg with Kerry Joseph on that draw, to seal the game. Going to BC Place, winning the West Final. So there were a lot of very memorable games that year. So that was, and then just the atmosphere there, because I think at that point they hadn't won a home playoff game since they hadn't hosted a home playoff game since I want to say '89. There was a pretty
I believe you're
significant
correct. It was a
drought there.
long
It's
time.
been a
Yeah.
long time. Yeah.
Yeah, so to have that home playoff game was, that place was electric, and it was a lot of fun. So, and then Toronto, hosting the Grey Cup, there was a lot of, the team had some issues the year before. Leaving Hamilton this time, it was kind of my own fruition. It was a mutual parting of the ways, and drove down drove down the highway and signed in Toronto later that day. So
Yeah.
which was great. But to the way that we brought that team together, and I remember I think halfway through the year, we were sitting in a hotel room after the game. A bunch of us were hanging out after a game in Calgary, and Jordan Younger and I were talking. We looked at each other like, all right, we got something special here. It was just one of those moments. You're like, all right, we've got something that we've got something special. So. And it ended up working out pretty well.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because like I said, those games were pretty magic to watch. I grew up, right around when you first entered the league around then, and I remember a lot of those games because that was a very big game with Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, and the 100th Grey Cup was the 100th Grey Cup. It was a very big deal, and it's just really cool to hear your side of that, talking from that season and everything like that. So again, thank you for coming on the show, Carter. I know you got some stuff you want to ask him, so please take the reins
Yes,
a little bit.
I was talking to a buddy of mine who he lives in Winnipeg, but he's from Saskatchewan, and he's a big fan of the Riders. So he wanted me to ask you, what is your opinion on the Melon Heads? Gotta know.
Oh, I love it. It was awesome. I mean, I can remember going in the Grey Cup in Calgary, and basically the city was sold out of Melon Heads, and it's a unique, and obviously they've come up with the foam Melon Heads now. But when I first got to the league, or when I first got to Saskatchewan, they were hardcore. So you got guys in the middle of summer, it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit out there, and they've got sticky melons on their heads. So that's pretty
Wearing
dire.
fruit.
Yeah, it's wild.
Legendary. I love Saskatchewan fans, man. They are crazy. The Banjo Bowl's like my favorite time of year. I love that stuff. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
So, what was your experience like getting drafted, such as first overall draft pick, going to Hamilton in 2004, I believe? Can you speak to that experience about entering the league? Because, like I said, you did have the experience of being on those practice squads and wanting to come and play and show that you could still play because of the injury problems with the Redskins and the Broncos and all that stuff that you just talked about. So, what was it like entering the league at such a high draft pick and having such a wanting to prove yourself so much? I'd love to hear what your first year in the CFL was like.
Well, it was great because having the opportunity, I was just hoping for an opportunity in the CFL. I had no idea that I was going to get drafted. And then I heard some rumblings. I was like, oh, you could go in the first half of the draft. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then it was, oh, you're probably going to be in the first round. I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome. And then once I hear that, you kind of get that you're going to be the first overall pick. It was pretty flattering, kind of overwhelming, but And at that point, I basically had a year out of football, so I was itching to get back, and it was had the opportunity to get in and play right away and play in Hamilton. As much as they ended up playing the last 5 years in Toronto, ended up as my arch nemesis, for lack of better terms. Hamilton was a great place to play, and I think the city at that point was really yearning to have some success, and it was a lot of fun, and the culture there, football wise, is top notch, and
Absolutely.
so I had the opportunity to play early and play in some big games there, and got a chance to learn from a lot of great guys. Like my quarterback was Danny McManus, so
Ooh,
you're not going to learn.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn. There's probably not going to anybody else you're going to learn much more from. And, playing with guys like Carl Coulter and Dave Hack and Joe Monford, Hitchcock and Morielli.
Mhm.
So, I had a pretty unique experience, but it was great.
Awesome. Yeah, I bet. I bet. And it's funny because you say like arch nemesis and stuff like that. I always feel like as a CFL, it's like if you have a career where you play for even like 6+ years, you're almost always gonna play with another team because there's only 9 teams. It's a small team. Players bounce around
Yeah.
a lot. It's very fun. Like I love looking at people that have been around for a long time. It's like play for almost every team in the CFL almost.
Yeah.
And I guess everyone's
Yeah.
your arch nemesis at one point. But again, it speaks to the unique experience that every fan base and every organization brings in this league because it's such a tight knit league that you can bounce around, so much and still have such a good relationship with the fans of the teams that you originally played on and everything. And it's that's what I love about the CFL. It's just such a fan. It just feels so connected to the fans in a sense because it's smaller. It's so low, centralized in Canada. And I that's what I've always loved about this league compared to the NFL because the NFL it's got all the the talent, the skill, it's got the spectacle, the big lights, but it just feels so disconnected sometimes from the fans. While the CFL it feels like it's built for the fans in a way, and that's what I've always really liked about it.
Yeah. No, it's unique in that everything's so accessible. You're a very
Absolutely.
accessible player. We were just everyday guys. We're walking around the grocery stores, and we're at restaurants, and it was it's a different dynamic. We spend so much time in. I know Hamilton put a big emphasis on it. Saskatchewan, Toronto as well. Being out in the community and being visible, being a face. So.
Yeah.
And even in the off season, you got an opportunity to do that a lot, and so it's unique to the CFL.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I got to imagine in like playing in a place like your hometown where you grew up in has got to be pretty special too. Like I remember when me and Jake were talking with Walby, he was like, Walby goes crazy about Winnipeg. So
Yeah.
I got to imagine it must have been quite something to be able to not only play in your hometown, but especially for such important games such as the Grey Cup. So
Yeah, no, it was good. I mean, it was, finishing my career in Toronto was great, and I had opportunities to leave, and in fact, I came at one point. I thought I was going to end up signing in Winnipeg, but
Oh really?
I decided at that point in my career that I kind of wanted to stay put. It was more important, for me to be able to stay home and play more games in front of family and friends at that
Absolutely.
point than
of course.
to pick up and move. But it's yeah, no, it was great to finish where I did.
Can I ask what year you would have been offered that deal by the Bombers? I'm very curious.
It would have been so the year of the I want to say so I was in Toronto 2012. I think 2014. I would have to say.
Wow, 2014 Bomber. Yeah,
Interesting.
that's very interesting. What if such a scenario right there?
Yeah.
I would have loved to see you on the Bombers, but you know what? I really respect what you said there about playing in front of family because if I was a professional athlete, I've always felt that that's where my values would lie too. Is home, building a home with my family, and especially because it's your hometown. I can only imagine what it was like to play in front of family in your hometown, like Carter was saying. So I totally respect that decision, and I would hope that I would do the same thing if I was in your boots, trying to make a nice life for the family and whatnot. But yeah, Carter, ask away, please. I'm taking away the conversations. Ask away.
Yeah. So I noticed that you were in 2008 for the CFL PA Pro Player All Star team. So congratulations. And I also want to ask about I remember I was looking in at the 95th Grey Cup with you had like your MOP with James Johnson, and then your most valuable Canadian with Andy Fantus, I believe.
Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
I feel yeah. So I wanted to know what it was like playing with some of those guys that were that played so well in that game and whatnot.
Yeah, no, we had a special group in '07. It was James Johnson. I mean, to have 3 picks in the Grey Cup is unheard of. And
Oh, seriously.
Yeah.
Andy was, Andy went on to have probably, he's probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame. And that was kind of his, that year was kind of his coming out party. He was our probably most reliable target. We lost some receivers earlier in the year, and he went on to have a phenomenal career. But he was just a super talented guy, and had the league MOP with Kerry Joseph, who's was a great leader, and a couple of other Hall of Famers like Gene Mikowski, Jeremy O'Day. So it was a great opportunity because not only are they great players, they're also better people. So we had a phenomenal locker room. The culture was second to none, and that was Ken Austin's first year as well, and he instilled the confidence in us that there was no panic ever. There was
for sure.
We always thought that every game that we went into, we were going to have an opportunity to win, and I think at most points, guys would have run through a brick wall for.
Yeah, and I got to imagine like that's got to be something that I feel like is sometimes even overlooked sometimes when looking at a locker room. Is, I mean, there's obviously fans will come up with all these ways where it's like you need talent from this part of the team and this part of the team, but that aspect of coming together as one solid group, one solid unit, I got to imagine was so important. But one thing I need to ask is, out of your entire time in the CFL, who is the biggest locker room character? I have to ask about that.
Oh man, we had some beauties. I'm trying to think. I got to play with Adriano Belli on 2 teams, so that was a unique experience. And he's one of the great, not even a locker room character. He's one of the great characters of the CFL in general.
For sure.
You have your Marwan Hages, your Mark Parento is another guy. There was never a lack of entertainment in those locker rooms.
Awesome. Locker room characters are like my favorite thing about sports. Hockey, football, whatever I played, baseball even, man. Any guys like that. They make the game more fun. They make it.
Absolutely.
They bring it to a personal level, and that's what you love about sports. Is just growing with a group of guys like that and winning with them and sharing memories. It's the best elements of sport. I wanna ask you about the 2-point conversion play that you scored on in where was it? In the 2-point conversion in August 8th against the Riders when you were on Toronto. Yeah. What was that like for an offensive lineman? You come into the huddle and you're like, all right, we're targeting you, because that's what it looked like. At least it looked like it was a drawn up play. So can you talk a little bit about that? And
yeah, it was 100% a drawn up play.
Awesome.
I was the only target in that play. It was a little bit of trickery because basically during my time there, I think at that point I was starting at guard, but then sometimes I would bump out to tight end. And because I moved around so much, I was able to line up there and nobody thought anything of it. But it's a play that we had in the playbook for about a year or so.
Wow.
And so we brought it out at a pretty big moment.
Absolutely.
I think we either tied the game.
I believe you tied the game. Yeah, on that play.
So
big game.
You celebrate for a second, but then it's kind of like, all right, we got to get back into
Absolutely.
and finish this thing off.
Absolutely. I loved finding that clip of that play. I was just like, oh my god, that's Smith catching a play. I did not expect to find that for the highlight reel I was working on. So yeah, I had to ask you about that.
The biggest thing is don't drop it.
Yeah, I bet. Butterfingers the worst time.
Do not drop it. It wasn't, it was and Trevor did a great job. He just laid it out there. It was pretty easy catch.
Yeah. Oh man, I bet you must have been pretty happy with that one. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, you only ever caught one pass for 3 yards outside of that play, according to your stat sheet.
That was that play.
That was that play. Okay, they weren't very specific.
One career catch. Yeah.
All right, there we go. Well, thank you CFL Stats for not being specific on that one. But but yeah, I just had to ask. That's cool because I never really got a chance to play offense like that. I was more of a safety. I never got any picks or nothing like that. I was just a little short guy running around having fun. So I always like to see the defensive guys go out there and make some plays like that. It's super fun to watch. So yeah,
and I played offensive line as well, but I was center, so there wasn't. I was never gonna go catch the ball. So
no, it's hard to hide the center.
Yeah,
very hard.
Very difficult.
Oh man. So yeah, what ended up driving your choice to retire in 2017? Did you just feel like it was the right time? Was it more of just like not a lot of offers? Was it something with injuries? I'm just curious because you were still pretty good in those years, right? You played 16 games in 2015, 17 in 2016. You were still a very active player, playing almost the full season. So what ended up driving that decision?
Yeah, at that point, it was kind of one of those where you kind of, you just feel like it's time. I wanted to leave before I was asked to leave.
Oh,
I wanted
absolutely.
to go out on my own terms, and at that point, we just had my daughter as well, so I kind of took the opportunity, and I still had a bit of an itch to play, but it was one of those. It seemed like a good time to walk away, and plus, that year I also had a lingering shoulder injury,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of like, could I have pushed it for another year? Possibly, but I ended up, I think I walked away right at the right time. Although the year after I leave, Toronto goes and wins another Grey Cup, so I was like, I should have stuck out for one more. But no, I think I went out at the perfect time.
Yeah, I always respect players that say that and want to go out on the high note and everything like that because you have legends in all sports that play way too long and it honestly affects the legacy at some point. So you have a great legacy. You first overall draft pick, a two-time champion. You played in some very key games on some really fun teams too, on some really great organizations. So I think that was I really like that answer from you, Wayne. I respect that a lot that you would go out and become the family man and everything like that. Even though I bet it would be nice to have that third ring on the finger.
Yeah, well, there was a couple times during that season where I was like, I got on the field again. I'm like, I feel okay. Like, shoulder's feeling all right. And I was like, should I get another run for the rest of the year? And I just at that point it was like, nah, because at that you at some point, for lack of better terms, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. So I think
Absolutely.
it's just you're always going to miss the game, and I think that going back would have just prolonged that. Once you get about 2 years out, you're like, yeah, I want no parts of anybody ever hitting me ever again. So, it's just part of the natural
Absolutely.
maturing process.
Would you ever come back to the CFL if like you were ever offered a coaching point or working in like a system or anything like that, or if you're more of just like footballs in the past and you're moving on with your life and just your new
I kind of
chapters?
took a couple year. I mean, I took a while where I just kind of stopped thinking about football. Now I enjoy it from a fan perspective, but I do miss being around the game. And I think if the opportunity came up and it was the right fit for what I'm doing now, or what kind of what I needed to do, I'd definitely take a hard, long look at it.
Just awesome. That's cool. I would always like to. I've always thought about that too. Coming back and coaching and stuff like that. Even now, I always felt like coaching would be something fun to do. Just as something if you like the sport. Growing with it and teaching it and helping other people fall in love with the game that you played. And I think coaching is just kind of it's a forgotten element of the game sometimes. Like you all rip the people always go after the coach when the fans when you're losing and stuff like that. But the coach, like you said, if you have a good coach back there, you've got a good system and a good room of guys. You'll die for everyone in that room. It is a family and I think that like coaching for players that like you in this situation where you've had a good career, you've been around, you know what the system's like in different fan bases. I think that a team would be lucky to have you, on their offense and trying to help build for a Grey Cup appearance. So yeah, maybe one day you'll get that offer. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe one day the paths will cross and I'll have the opportunity. But yeah, and it's not something I've actively pursued. But if the right opportunity came about, I would definitely look at it.
Absolutely, absolutely. What was your favorite season that you ever played in? Obviously, like you could pick a Grey Cup year, but like you had a long career. Was there any year that just really stood out to you where you just felt like you were at the peak of your career and like nothing could stop you?
Um, probably say me physically, like personally, I think 2008 was probably my best year. It was a pretty good year for me, and I think I'd had a year in Saskatchewan, a year to grow in the system. I felt comfortable. I was having probably some of the most fun I'd had my entire career at that point. And it was unfortunately the year before I had that injury where I was out for two. Basically, I was out for basically the better part of 2 years. So um, it was kind of that pinnacle at that point. But just from an overall like team perspective, even outside the Grey Cup, Grey Cup aside, I think 2007 was probably one of the most fun years I've ever had.
Yeah, I would imagine that was a very, like you said, you have so many characters, so many Hall of Famers even on that team. Like I could only imagine playing like that in that environment, what it would be like. Because I might tell you what, my football team that I played in as a little kid, not very good. So yeah, your probably memories much better than the ones that I have playing football. But yeah, Carter, do you have anything you'd like to ask, as from the football standpoint?
Like, I'm just trying to think here. There was something I had in my mind. I'm trying to remember it. So
Typical, just like me.
this happens all the time with me. I swear to God.
We'll play the Jeopardy music. It'll come back to you.
There we go. Exactly. Just trying to remember. Oh, come on.
Who would you say your favorite coach was? I'll ask a question while Carter's thinking.
Yeah.
Favorite head coach or favorite coach overall?
What favorite overall coach? Why not?
That's a tough question.
I bet.
I had so many great ones, and I think they're all pretty unique in their own ways. I got the opportunity to play for Bob Wiley as an offensive line coach, and I'm sure he became a viral sensation with the Browns with this whole hut thing. But not only was he just a brilliant coach, but he was a blast to play for. I mean, some of the stuff that he was a magician. He was in the Air Force. He
the heck?
Coached in the NFL. He had a pretty impressive resume, and he made every day a lot of fun. And he was great. I mean, he was a great technician. You learned a ton from him as a football player.
Did he ever pull a magic trick on you?
Oh well, he'd bring his cards sometimes. He'd have
awesome. I want a coach like that at practice.
Show us a couple tricks here and there, and there's a lot of steak dinners on. If we hit a certain milestone or a certain goal, then he'd take us out to a nice steak dinner at golf in Saskatchewan, which I'm sure didn't feel good on the wallet, but he was Wiley was great, and like I said, Ken Austin was a phenomenal coach to play for. I got to play for Greg Marshall early in my career. Greg Marshall's at Western now. I've had some great O-line coaches through the time. So, I had a pretty extensive range, and it was, I think they each brought little elements, not only personality wise, but also in the development of me as a player.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's funny. I wish I had a coach that was a magician. That would have made practices a lot better than doing lines and everything else.
I can just imagine getting everyone in the huddle and then handing the receiver some cards. All right, whatever card you get, that's your route.
And,
let's see what happens. But I finally remembered what I wanted to ask. So I want to ask, now that you're I'd say out of the system now that you've retired and moved on from it, and now we're more in as a fan. What have you probably noticed that's maybe changed since you've been around the game?
Let's see what's different. A couple things. Obviously it's there's a lot of change. I think the biggest change is probably the 1-year contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, guys are moving early in my career, or even the majority of my career. It was always a big thing if a guy moved from one team to the next. I mean, you had guys that would stay on their teams for 10, 12 years, or even, 4 or 5 years. But now you've got, with the 1-year contract, you've got guys going from team to team to team, which I think it takes the element away of a guy really like having the opportunity to, kind of endear himself to that city. So I think that hurts them a little bit, but I also think that as a player, I mean, I think it's beneficial. It has some merit to it, but I also think that it's definitely hurting the brand as far as guys being able to become known in the city, and by the time you become a fan of this guy, next thing you know, he's on free agency comes and he's around, or every year it's just you're kind of going through that cycle, which I think takes away from other elements of the team. So. That's the only thing I can think of that's changed dramatically. I think everything else is pretty consistent, other than the names and the guys who are still around.
It's funny that you say that. Oh, Carter, please.
I got to imagine that, especially for like some newer fans trying to get in the game, who are trying to get I remember just because I didn't know that much about football until I started playing it in high school. So I remember just trying to get remembering names and starting to get fully rejuvenated with everything, because I had seen a few games at the old Canada Inns Field and whatnot, and had seen guys like Stiegel and Westwood and all of them play, and I remember like seeing like a few of my buddies like try like just in the past like 2 years try to get into football, and they'd start like like taking down names and remembering names, and all of a sudden like half those guys were traded like just a few months later, and they're not on the team anymore. So he found it a little bit difficult to get a grasp of things when all that was happening.
It's funny that you mentioned that too, Wayne, because Chris Wallaby actually said almost the exact same thing with the Stents that we asked him the question, why do you think this, there's a skipped generation within the CFL right now? The younger people, me and Carter's age, it's not as popular within that demographic than it has been in the past. And a lot of that he thought was because it's hard for younger people to get connected to players when like you said, 1-year contracts and you're playing for like 5 different teams in 5 years. It's hard to build a brand. It's hard to, maintain any hype around these players, especially with the constant rotating carousel of guys coming in and leaving and replacing talent in free agency. I think that actually, like what you said was, you hit the nail head on. The CFL, if they want to grow, in my opinion, the game more within the younger generation, they need to find a way with the owners and management to keep players around and build a brand around these guys, like what you see in every other sport league. Because it's hard to really, market a team without marketing faces.
Correct.
Yeah,
and you have that, you lose that that element, which is important. Like I can remember, just going back to getting to Saskatchewan, or even in my time in Hamilton, the guys who had been there and the core group of guys, and you're going to lose, a couple guys a year, but the core group of guys had been there for a pretty significant period of time, and they were, so woven in the fabric of the community that, that people, when it came time for those guys to leave, like the community really was upset. So I think the fact that they're upset shows how much they cared about those players. And I think that was just through longevity and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
So I think, you lose that with the constant transition. But then I also think you have to, the CBA, they've got to come up with a happy medium, because I think you got to find a way that keeping those players in one place benefits the organization as well as the player. I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously you want to make sure that both it's beneficial to both parties. So hopefully they can come up with something that makes that work.
For sure. I really feel like that's the missing element within the CFL right now, is just having, these core guys on every team, like not even just the quarterbacks, but like the surrounding talent that really builds up the fan base more. Because, you see it with teams like Winnipeg, for example, and Hamilton right now as well, and even Saskatchewan to an extent, where you have these guys that have been there for, 5+ years, these core guys, but then like you go to a BC, the Elks, even the Stamps to an extent outside of Levi Mitchell, they don't have a real like marketable core because there's just so many players. So yeah, I really would love to see that change in the next couple of years, but again with COVID now too as well, with the financial insecurities of not knowing who you can sign if you have the money, the changing cap, how the league, even all the lost revenue from the missed year and a half of football that they didn't play. So it's going to be up for there's going to be a lot of interesting storylines to follow with that. But yeah, like you said, I hope that the CBA and all that other stuff, they can figure out a way to find a perfect medium and keep the players and organizations happy so that the game can grow within the fan base. Carter,
fingers crossed they come up with it.
I hope so. I love the CFL. I just want to see it get bigger and bigger. It's such a beautiful sports league, and I just try to tell all my friends, it's not the NFL. It's something different. If you go in thinking you're watching NFL football, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much as if you go in with no expectations and you try to find, the ways that you connect with it, the 3 downs, the larger fields, all the rule changes. It's just a different game, and that's why I love it so much. Is because I can watch both leagues and find enjoyment in both of them in different ways. And I just really would love to see this league grow for that standpoint. It's just such a nice, refreshing game of football compared to the NFL at times.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of what I think it'll probably be probably about 4 or 5 years before we start seeing those contracts long term really starting to get signed again. Just because I think that the league wants to probably play it a little safe in terms of money wise for the next few years with both the COVID uncertainty and obviously all the lost revenue they had.
Yeah.
So I predict that it'll probably be a few years to kind of stabilize themselves and restabilize hopefully the situation in the world to where, they don't have to be concerned that, maybe we don't play next season or something like that. They don't have that uncertainty. So I think it'll be a few years before that. So I also have to ask this because I sometimes see professional athletes get asked this, and this is always an interesting thing to me. So, I mean, obviously, I got to imagine sometime in your period, there must have been some sort of meet and greets that you may have had to go to with this and that, where you've had some interactions with the fans, had to sign some things. What is the weirdest thing you have ever had to sign?
I signed babies. That was weird.
What?
Yeah, actually, like
I've heard the
like
expression.
babies. Yeah. I've signed Saskatchewan. The tough part, Saskatchewan. They've branded themselves to the point where, I mean, they make Saskatchewan everything. I mean, anything you can think of, they've slapped the Rider logo on it. I remember myself and a teammate were at a meet and greet at the mall there, and we were signing Saskatchewan women's underwear, and it was so signed a couple pairs of those, and
Oh my
the lady
god.
goes,
Oh my word.
I think the creepiest part was the mother goes, "Yeah, I bought these for my daughter and her friends." So so the whole time I'm thinking, I hope this doesn't come back to bite me.
Yeah, right?
I almost wanted to record that interaction in case, why is your signature on this girl's underwear? Like, I swear her mom did it. Like, I had no hint.
Oh my god, that is a new one. I've never heard that.
I
Underwear for my friend's daughter.
Hey,
oh my god.
You signed this? Why?
Oh,
yeah,
man.
so it's I mean, you get the arm. Some teams we're able to say, because some people walk up and go, "Can you sign my arm? Or can you sign this?" It's just, you get, all right, but yeah, no, that was probably the most between that and the baby were the two most unusual things that I had signed.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my god, what a story!
I don't even understand it, because I imagine with, I mean, I've gotten my hat signed, and I've had jerseys I've gotten signed before, and I can think oh, I'll get this jersey signed, I'll get it framed, I'll put it on my wall.
Post-it I had signed one time.
There are some things I just don't understand. So
yeah.
Well, who doesn't want to hang Saskatchewan Roughriders women's underwear signed by Wayne Smith on their wall or in a display case? Why have a football signed when you can have female underwear? I think that, come on, it's the new wave, Carter. Don't you know? It's started. Saskatchewan started the new collector's item.
Yeah, I don't think that one took off the way.
Yeah,
but
probably
probably
for best.
Probably for the better.
Can you imagine that woman's like, "Look what I did! Wayne Smith signed this," and now it's like some underground trend within the fan base.
Yeah.
I have to reach out to a Saskatchewan player. I'm gonna have to ask him if that's the thing.
Oh no,
that's a new thing out there.
Maybe. Carter, you have anything else you'd like to shoot out there?
I don't even know what to say after that.
You know what? I think that's the perfect way to end this interview, on that amazing story about women's underwear. Wayne, thank you so much. It's been a privilege talking with you. You're an absolute beauty.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate you coming on. And if you'd ever like to come back on, story time with Wayne Smith, the door is always open. You've been an absolute blast. You've been an absolute blast talking to you.
I'll start thinking of a few more, and I'll let you guys know if I get enough to make it entertaining. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, Wayne. Anytime. We always like to. Yeah, seriously. And we also always like to give our guests a chance to, shout out, plug any links. If you have anything you'd like the people to know about there, go ahead and let them know right now.
No, nothing really.
All right. Well, we'll make sure to link Wayne's Instagrams and Twitter down in the description below, so you can go give him a follow down there. And we'll do that. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and Wayne, again, thank you for coming on. We hope you enjoyed this interview. If you are new to the CFL Central channel, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications if you haven't already. Make sure to follow us all on Twitter and Instagram, and check out the affiliated links in the description below as always. Thank you so much for watching this video. Have a great rest of your day. Peace, love, and positivity. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.